Today, we're going to talk about what's in the news with all things Social Security and Medicare. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ed Weir. I ran the third busiest Social Security office in the country. And in my semi-retirement, I'm helping you all get everything you're entitled to from all things Social Security, Medicare, retirement, survivor benefits, all the rest of it. I'll get into the news of the day, go through it all, give you all my opinions and perspectives on it. And as we used to say in the Marine Corps, my opinion and $15 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but I'm going to talk to you about it anyway. And you can mute my opinions if you want, but be that as it may, I'm going to give them to you. All right, so let's talk about the breaking news going out there today. So we got four things I want to talk about, and there was another I want to add on there. Just came out today. The Social Security Fairness Act. It's kind of a misnomer, if you ask me. Social Security cuts, what we're looking at in the future. Customer service delays. I've done a video on that. I'll kind of recap that. Social Security Online, and then also the Commissioner of Social Security was on News Nation today and said a bad word online. So it's interesting. So he's out as the commissioner. He's resigned. So I guess he can say whatever he wants now. So there's that. All right. So the first story we have is Schumer says the Senate will vote on the Social Security changes, and Social Security changes were what they're talking about. This legislation, this bill passed the House of Representatives with pretty much bipartisan support. It's the one that's going to get rid of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. So about 3% of the American working public works for state or local entities. Federal employees pay Social Security FICA tax. Ever since the early 1980s. But there are some state and local employees out there that do not play with Social Security in their main jobs. So they're teachers, firefighters, police, or whatever the case may be. And those systems decided to opt out of the Social Security Administration. But a lot of those employees worked at other places before and they paid into Social Security, or if they're a cop, they did some security work on the side and paid into Social Security. And when they get their Social Security benefits, it's recalculated. If you ever hear anybody say it's reduced, that is, yeah, they're trying to lead you down the wrong way. It's recalculated because the Social Security computer system is kind of old, antiquated, and it doesn't calculate it the way it should. It can now, but for decades it couldn't. And these individuals were receiving more. They were receiving a benefit amount that was intended for low income wage earners. And in order to stop that extra benefit that was going to these 3%, that is where they came in with this thing called the windfall elimination provision, the provision to eliminate the windfall. What is the windfall? The extra benefit that was being paid. And a lot of people out there are probably blowing smoke right now on fire. I'm not getting an extra benefit. My benefit is this, that, or the other. So let me go in this one more time. People just don't understand. Politicians, I think politicians understand it, but they're trying to get votes or whatever the case may be. Social Security determines your benefit amount by your high 35 years of earnings. They take your high 35 years of earnings, they average it. It's called the averaged index monthly earnings. They take your earnings and index it for basically like an inflation. So if you made $20,000 in 1975, it's not worth $20,000 today. It's probably worth $100,000 today. So they take all that and they come up with your average index monthly earnings. And then they multiply it by these bin points down there, 90% for the first part, 32%, 15%. Why do they have these progressive bin points? Because see the chart here, if on the far right, it says $10,000. So if your average income throughout your life was $10,000, you're going to get a 35% replacement rate. That means you're getting 35% of that back when you retire. So about $3,400. If you're at the other end of the spectrum, if you're low income wage earner throughout your life, and your average index monthly earning was only $1,000, Congress decided that, well, you're not going to have a 401k. If you're only making $1,000 throughout your life, you're not going to have a 401k or savings. You've probably been on welfare all your life. You've been really, really just having a hard time. So we're going to give you some more as a percentage. So you're going to get 90%, right? And then it's progressive. So if someone's making $5,000 average throughout their life, they get about a 46% replacement rate. What happens is because these teachers and firefighters and cops, didn't pay into the system, they paid into another system. It looks as for the majority of it, it looks like they're low income wage earners, so they're going to get a 90% replacement rate. Even though, let's say, a cop that was working in Topeka, Kansas, making about $5,000, they paid into Social Security, they get a 46% replacement rate. A cop that works in Florida, let's say, that didn't pay into it, their average throughout their life was $5,000, but they only paid the $1,000 into Social Security. So they're getting a 90% replacement rate. So why should these people get a 90% replacement rate when someone equal to them is only receiving a 46% replacement rate? If it passes the Senate, that's exactly what's going to happen. Those people are going to get an extra benefit that wasn't intended for them. So I hope that doesn't pass. I hope the president doesn't sign it, but it looks like it's going to happen, and it's going to affect everybody because it's going to put about another $190 billion of debt of costs into the Social Security Trust Fund, and therefore the Social Security Trust Fund will run out sooner, and we'll have cuts sooner and all the rest of it. So hopefully it doesn't pass. Should there be other solutions? Yes. The Social Security computer system now, they can calculate your pension, those 3% of people, they are able to calculate it. Before 1983, those people's non-entity pension, those non-covered pensions, did not report to Social Security. So, a couple of decades ago, Social Security computer system couldn't calculate it. Now they pretty much can. So there's other solutions because, yeah, sometimes the windfall elimination provision kind of hurts the people that have been low income wage earners, but it's really going to benefit a whole bunch of other people, and they're going to get twice the amount of check than they should have, or other people that worked in the same amount are going to get. So it's the Social Security Fairness Act. If it passes, I say the other 97% of us go for another law that says Social Security Fairness Act 97%, but this is the Fairness Act for 3%. But anyway, so I'm going to get a lot of comments about that, but again, people just don't understand it. All right, Social Security cuts. So the president, I talked about this a little while ago. The president-elect Trump said they're not going to raise the retirement age, and they're not going to do cuts. They're just going to get whatever. They're going to get what they're going to get, and that's good. I like that. But as I've talked about in other videos, the issue is sure in this administration we're not going to get cuts. Well, we're already getting cuts. I'll talk about that in a second. But the cuts are not slated to come immediately here. Let me throw up this is when the cuts are going to happen. So we've known about these cuts for decades, that in about 2034, we're going to get 21% cuts because there's less money coming into Social Security. And at that time, the trust fund that we saved up to cover these gaps is empty. So we're still going to get Social Security. Social Security is still going to be around here for another 50, 75, 100 years. It's just that we're going to get less, 21% cuts across the board if we don't do anything. In 2031, we're going to get 33% cuts if the next administration does some of the things they're talking about, cutting taxes and different things, because that's going to affect Social Security negatively. We're all good for cutting taxes, but it's going to have a negative effect on our benefits going forward. If we do the right thing, if we fix it, then there's 0% cuts. But it seems as though the solution out there is, again, some politicians, the president-elect said he's not going to cut it. And then this other Missouri congressman commented that everything is on the table. We've got Doge out there with Elon Musk, and there's a secret behind the doors kind of negotiations are looking for $2 trillion. If they're going to cut $2 trillion, I guarantee it's got to be coming from Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, because that makes up quite a bit of the national budget, even though Social Security and Medicare do not add one penny to the deficit, because Social Security and Medicare are self-funded. They are a separate entity. Sure, the general revenue has, borrowed from that money, but that is still just like, bank. You have to pay back the bank, and the Social Security right now is a bank that the general fund is borrowing from. Hey, if you need help with Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, Part D plans, make sure you reach out to my partners at Chapter Medicare. I looked for a place that would help y'all out, and Chapter Medicare knocked it out of the park. They've got excellent customer service. They look at every single plan in your area, and their help is always 100% free. Give them a call and they'll see if they can help you out, and tell them Dr. Ed said hi. So they got to get their story straight. Are they going to cut benefits? Are they going to raise the retirement age? And it's interesting that it just so happened today that the commissioner of Social Security, the soon to be outgoing commissioner of Social Security, let me get rid of this here, went on News Nation this morning, and the reporter was saying, okay, hey, the long range results, the trust fund is going to disappear in 2031 or 2034, and there's only a certain amount of solutions. And this is a terrible reporter. I don't know who this guy is, but he's a terrible reporter. This is the only solutions out there is to raise taxes by 3.3%, reduce it, cut benefits by 21%, or 25% for everybody, or a combination of the above. No, if you look at I put a link to the Social Security Actuaries report in the description, and you can see there's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different, ideas to save Social Security. And those, it seems like the government didn't plan, the politicians didn't plan, they're not doing the right thing to support Social Security. So I guess, now that it's crunch time, the only thing we do is raise taxes on everybody or cut your benefits. No, that's kind of I would argue that's been the plan all along. But the solution I advocate for those regular viewers out there is, right now there's a cap, and the cap is if you and me and 99% of the people watching this, you pay Social Security on every dollar you make. If you make under $176,100 for next year. After that, if you make over $176,000, you don't pay Social Security FICA tax anymore. Go figure. So we've been paying FICA tax on all our money for the last several decades. Why don't we share the wealth and have the other, the people that are making over $176,100 pay Social Security FICA taxes on all their income for a few decades? Because right now, if you're making $5 million, you're only paying 0.44% of that income. If you're making 10 million, then you're paying a lot less into FICA. But us schmoes, we're paying 6.2%, and our employer paying 6.2%. And so, yeah, there are and you can go click on the link, the actuary report, and it gives you all of the different proposals to save Social Security and how much it would save it and all the rest of it. So you can look for it yourself. It'll take you 10 minutes to solve the problems of Social Security. It's just that we need politicians to act and do something now. All right. And now this is what we've got in terms of current cuts. So Social Security beneficiaries at risk of delays amid funding fight. Okay, so these are cuts happening right now, and this is exactly why I'm doing this channel, is because, now Social Security has essentially turned into, a five-star restaurant. You got to have reservations to talk to them, even though you paid FICA taxes all those decades, and part of that FICA tax was supposed to go to help, get you help when you need it. But they can't help because they're at a 50-year low in terms of staffing. They're not getting support by politicians. And so these are the delays that are going to happen. You're going to have a harder time to get your retirement benefits, disability benefits, spouse benefits, survivor benefits. It's going to take you longer. I talked about this a couple of days ago. Call your congressperson. I've got a petition there as well. If you look in the chat, there is a petition to get the politicians to support Social Security. Social Security just needs 1.2% of outlays in order to, do everything they need to do. And what is happening, these politicians are playing games. They're trying to, distract, and they're saying, well, we gave you all $100 million extra last year, and come on, how much more do you want? Well, the fixed costs, rent goes up, electricity for all these, thousands of buildings, the COLA increase for employees, because, they have families too. That was over, I think the commissioner said it was about $400 or $500. So an extra $100 million, sure, thank you. But now that means we're an extra $300 or $400 million under what we need this year to survive. So they've got layoffs coming. I remember when I ran my office, we had a couple of times where we had kind of furloughs, and particularly in terms of disability. And so they play these politicians say, "Hey, we gave you an extra $100 million, so until you all improve customer service or whatever." But again, you need employees. They're at a 50-year low in terms of staffing. And another thing they say, well, you're teleworking. I talked about this several times in my office, in every office in the country. People telework, they're just as efficient as they are at their desks. We assign them appointments, 6, 7, 8 appointments a day. And whether they're sitting next to the person and they have to take those appointments, or if they're sitting 10 miles down the road in their house, those appointments have to be taken. Those claims have to be adjudicated. Those phones have to be answered. It doesn't matter whether the person is in the same office or down the street. It doesn't matter. If you all want people to go back to the office, then unfortunately, I think I know a lot of Social Security employees. Some of them kind of got used to teleworking, and if they're kind of forced to go back to the office, I think you're going to lose more staffing. So it's probably going to, be a 60-year low. So yeah, telework, whether it's good or bad, it's not deteriorating customer service at all. So again, it's just politicians use an excuse to distract you because they don't want to fund Social Security because they ultimately want to give Social Security over to their Wall Street buddies and drown it in the bathtub. So, okay. And the final thing I'm going to talk about today, then I'll open it up to all your questions, is Social Security Online. Make sure you go into your Social Security account, mysocialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov. Go in there and update your Social Security account. If you haven't, if you've started it a few years ago, you went in there and never used it, you have to make sure you go in there because Social Security, to be efficient, which I think was a great idea, they're going to stop sending out mail. I used to process the mail in my office, and we spent a lot of money on postage. So they've gotten smart and they said, hey, kind of letters, COLA increase letters, and all these type of letters that we usually mail out and spend a lot of money and postage and envelopes and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to send that to your My Social Security account. So if you get some type of information, you just go in, you log into SSA.gov, your My Social Security account, and you'll see it there rather than getting a letter in the mail. So I think you can opt out of the paper or the electronic if you really, really want to. But that's a good thing. But you have to go in there and make sure you update your Social Security account and go through the new process. The more the robust system, the more secure system. So, all right, let's go ahead and so that's the news for today. And I'll keep an eye on all the rest of the stuff, keep you all up to date, and that way you all get everything you earned for all those decades you paid into it.